Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hard-working immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine.
Jimmy Kimmel's a loser. I do Jimmy Kimmel. I did him a lot.
Yeah.
And he'd be standing on the sidewalk. Oh, sir, may I bring you in? He'd bring me in every time. The whole show is talking bad about Trump.
He called us doofuses when we had you on.
He's a group of doofuses in flat-brimmed hats.
Guess what? We
Ask him how many.
what he did.
Ask him.
5X
Yeah, you
each.
do bigger. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. He showed.
Jimmy Kimmel just got blindsided with a $500 million lawsuit from Donald Trump, and Greg Gutfeld isn't letting the moment go to waste. On his show, Gutfeld launched into a razor-sharp monologue, tearing into Kimmel's self-important late-night persona with biting jokes and well-placed irony. But this wasn't just comedy, it was a public takedown. For anyone who thought Kimmel was above criticism, Gutfeld made it clear. He's not. This wasn't just a roast. It was a masterclass in turning Hollywood arrogance into a punchline. No one saw coming.
Incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then
The Academy Awards, I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. And this stupid guy goes up, and just before the Best Picture of the Year, the show is almost over. They're waiting for the Best Picture of the Year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it. I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the Best Picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host of the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me, or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a...
But Gutfeld didn't just poke fun at Kimmel High, scorched him. With relentless jokes, razor-sharp sarcasm, and flawless timing, Gutfeld went all in. After Trump dropped the $500 million lawsuit, Kimmel found himself in more than just legal trouble. He became the centerpiece of Gutfeld's comedy barrage. And those jokes, they landed harder than Kimmel's sinking TV ratings.
And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him, and guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
oh. You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song.
The show kicked off with a jolt of energy. Gutfeld hit the stage, grinning like he'd just unwrapped an unexpected gift. And what was the gift this time? A massive $500 million lawsuit slapped on Jimmy Kimmel. Honestly, if irony were cash, Kimmel's tab would be bigger than California's deficit. Gutfeld stood before the crowd, lit up like a kid watching the class clown finally get hauled off to the principal's office.
I just got a review, and has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars? His opening was that of a less than average person trying too hard to be something which he is not and never can be. Get rid of Kimmel and perhaps replace him with another washed up but cheap ABC talent, George Slopanopoulos.
In this case, the class clown was Jimmy Kimmeland, the principal, a judge holding a $500 million invoice. Gutfeld was clearly loving every second as he broke it down for the audience. He painted Kimmel as a guy who spent years pretending to be a therapist, a moral compass, and a comedian, without actually nailing any of the three.
The killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, you just don't realize it. Because you see, he's smarter than you. And he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a penis.
Kimmel likes to think he's speaking truth to power, but, as Gutfeld pointed out, it's hard to take that seriously when he's reading lines written by interns who treat TikTok like a trusted news source. Gutfeld didn't just expose the cracks in Kimmel's show, he tore the whole thing down. He zeroed in on Kimmel's transformation. Once a mildly funny guy in a suit, now a bitter commentator delivering lectures instead of laughs. And with Trump's $500 million lawsuit looming, Kimmel's carefully crafted image as the morally superior comedian looked about as sturdy as a paper straw in a hurricane.
Jimmy's career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into his menstrual cycle. Here's another morose multimillionaire. Hey there.
Gutfeld shredded Kimmel's image, pointing out how Jimmy had morphed. From a class clown into a self-appointed judge, jury and occasional executioner. The twist. He's now being sued by the very man he mocked for years. Donald Trump. Then Gutfeld did what he does best. He layered on the irony. He joked that Kimmel, who's constantly preaching about misinformation and abuse of power, was suddenly the one under the spotlight. It was like watching a cat get sprayed with its own water bottle. Kimmel, who turned his show into a confessional booth for liberal guilt, was now learning that accountability cuts both ways, and he wasn't ready for it. Gutfeld couldn't help but laugh at how Kimmel's fans treated him like a late-night war hero, charging into battle armed with cue cards instead of courage. But now that hero was stuck in a courtroom, trying to explain how jokes, especially the sharp, targeted kind, can come with real-world consequences.
I wonder who he thinks the people at fault are.
The people at fault are Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Jill Biden, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, every elected member of Congress. The Democratic Party let that disaster happen. That is not a media failure. That is a Democratic Party failure. And only right-wing manufactured outrage who claims the media and the Democratic Party work as one have fused it into this.
Oh, I have a few names to add. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, the town crier.
Gutfeld didn't let up. He took aim at Kimmel's audience too. Not the average viewers looking for a laugh, but the self-satisfied superfans who cheer for anything that's anti-Trump. He mocked them as a nightly support group for the smug, showing up just to hear Kimmel repeat the same lines they tweeted that morning. But now, with a $500 million lawsuit hanging over Kimmel's head, that same crowd was glued to their phones, nervously wondering if their favorite late-night preacher was about to go broke. Then Gutfeld turned to Kimmel's past, reminding everyone that the man now delivering moral lectures once hosted bikini contests on TV. He painted a hilarious image of Kimmel backstage in full panic mode, flipping through legal documents, calling his lawyer mid-quinoa bite, frantically Googling whether chasm counts as legal evidence, and even wondering if crying on camera might help him win in court.
They're wrecks because they believe the media. And yet, we're fine because we weren't brainwashed. We know the media's job is to lie, to create anxiety out of proportion to the actual threat or no threat at all. Journalists really only need to give you one tip to manage stress, and that's stop paying attention to journalists.
The audience loved the image, because there's something undeniably funny about watching a proud celebrity take a fall. And Gutfeld knew exactly how to make it hilarious. He painted a scene of Kimmel in court, not behind his polished TV desk, not shielded by cheering fans or social media praise, but standing alone, like an old rerun no one bothers to watch anymore. Gutfeld joked that Kimmel might try to crack a joke out of habit, only to realize courtrooms don't come with laugh tracks.